I thought subsidy was bad. Why is Tinubu bringing it back? Welcome to the news and thank you for tuning in to listen. Please subscribe to our channel to get notified when we post hot juicy news updates. Please click on the notification bell. A September 21, 2023 Enterprise News report, that is a news report that is not from a news release or press conference from the Daily Trust, found that despite the numerous assurances by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu that subsidy is gone, the federal government paid 169.4 billion naira as subsidy in August to keep the pump price at 620 naira per liter. What happened? I thought petrol subsidies were evil and harmful and no good and drains on the economy that should be avoided at all costs. I thought the government had no responsibility to tame the savagery of market forces and to protect citizens from the full fury of the vagaries of international oil prices. I thought the invisible hand was supposed to regulate prices unaided by any governmental intervention, which has been thoroughly disproved by the fact that petrol marketers arbitrarily increased the pump prices after Tinubu precipitously announced that subsidies were gone, even though they were selling the old stock of petrol that had been subsidized by taxpayers. I thought it didn't matter that unaffordable and extortionate petrol prices are causing hundreds of thousands of Nigerians to starve and die, small and large scale industry to collapse, unemployment to skyrocket, the economy to shrink, the quality of life of the average citizen to plummet, and Nigeria as a whole to regress to the Stone Age. With the naira on an unprecedentedly free fall against the dollar and global petrol prices on the rise, it is inevitable that petrol would have been at least 1,000 naira a litre by now if the invisible hand that conservative economists have invested so much faith in were left to determine the pump price of petrol. It is conceivable that it could even climb to 2,000 naira per litre in the coming months if the government does not interfere with the vagaries of the market. Why is Tinubu committing economic blasphemy by misdoubting the power of the omniscient and omnicompetent invisible hand to take care of everything? Why is he intervening to stop the pump price of petrol from getting to its appropriate rate? Does he want our petrol to be so affordable that our neighbors will smuggle it? Does he no longer want to save money to build and renew infrastructure and fund education? Never mind that we haven't seen where the money saved from the withdrawal of subsidies since May have been put to productive use, or that only the living and the healthy can use infrastructure and go to school. Well, I guess Tinubu and his ideological cheerleaders in and out of government are beginning to see what some of us have been saying for years, that subsidizing an essential commodity like petrol in Nigeria, whose price affects every facet of life, is not an option. It is an abiding moral imperative. The government's primary reason for existing is to protect lives, as it is by now evident, withdrawing first subsidy in an oil-producing country that is the poverty capital of the world, that has one of the world lowest minimum wages, and that has no public transportation system is a trigger for mass suffering and mass deaths. There is something else that must have informed Tinubu's decision to stealthily halt the pending rise in the pump price of petrol. Insurance against mass anarchy and revolt. Although Nigerians can be some of the most incredibly docile and self-hypnotic people on earth, it is stupid to assume that they will always be so. As someone once remarked, the day when large numbers of men have to choose between feeding their children and providing a roof over their heads is the day when nothing will stop the torches and the pitchforks. In other words, there is a limit to human endurance of pain and deprivation. Most people won't listlessly just roll over and perish because of persistent adversity. People with an overpowering will to live, who cannot survive a government engineer suffocation of their lives, which is withdrawal of subsidies amid endemic poverty represent, will turn to crime out of desperation. That is why the crime statistics in Nigeria have quadrupled since May. But it's going to get worse. For now, the victims of crimes are the poor and the disappearing middle class. The rich and the powerful are next if the current subsidy removal activated accusation does not abate. After the poor, the lower middle class and the middle class are dispossessed. the rich will become the next meal of the desperately poor. Eat the rich is an enduring, often metaphoric, revolutionary catchphrase usually mouthed by conscientious, socially sensitive middle class intellectuals to denote redistributive economic justice. But it could become literal in Nigeria once it gets to the point when only the rich politicians and their underlings, wealthy business people, and other government subsidized fat cats have all the food. And that is why the so-called bear bread riots are historically the most common triggers of momentous mass insurrections. Cynical conservations in the West like to say subsidies for the poor are basically protection money to stop the poor from stealing and revolting. The rich in the West do not want to be awake because the poor cannot sleep. The late Professor Sam Aluko captured it brilliantly in 1999 when a memorable said, "The poor cannot sleep because they are hungry, and the rich cannot sleep because the poor are weak and hungry." And that is why the welfare state was brought forth in the West. The International Encyclopedia of the Social and Behavioral Sciences defined the welfare state as a state that is committed to providing basic economic security for its citizens by protecting them from market risks associated with old age, unemployment, accident, and sickness. Ironically, it is the same welfarist West whose institutions such as the IMF and the World Bank encourage, in many cases, compel developing countries like Nigeria to strip the poor of basic economic security through the removal of subsidies. Of course, our rapacious, self-loving leaders who want exclusive control over state resources for themselves and their families welcome the freedom from being responsible to struggling citizens that removal of subsidy represents and slavish, unthinking ideologies of the Washington Consensus cheer on. There is not an example of a single country on earth that has made progress on the basis of the cruel policies that the World Bank and the IMF impose on countries. As Professors David Held and Anthony McGraw persuasively showed in their book Globalization and Anti-Globalization, Beyond the Great Divide, developing countries that have benefited most from globalization are those that have not played by the rules of a standard neoliberal market approach, including China, India, and Vietnam. In fact, even America, the patron saint of capitalism, doesn't practice the sort of cruel, extreme capitalism that Tinubu is practicing, and that even his opponent promised that they would practice if they got a chance to be elected president. As I pointed out in my December 10, 2016 column titled Dangerous Fine Print in Emir Sanusi's Prescription for Buhari, when it comes to welfare of its citizens, America does not practice on its soil what its institution preach to developing countries. Now, this is what I'm going to say. This man, you don't hit the nail for the head. Make we dey watch and they see how everything will use unfold for this government. Alright, on those notes, we have come to the end of the news. We say thank you for tuning in to listen. Until I come your way next time, enjoy the rest of your day.